I'm Sarah, and I'm really proud to be here, and also proud to know that some of the community members who I'm working alongside in this work are here in the room, Jim and Ali and Teresa, Finn and Paula, as well as the learners from community capacity building to the cohort I was in, who I'm so encouraged by your presence and happy to be presenting alongside you. I think for me, some of the deepest learnings were from stories that you shared in the class around personal experience, shared with vulnerability in that brave space, and that through that work of accountability becomes so possible. So gratitude really to everyone here. So the project I focused on, and which really is at the heart of the work of Hives for Humanity, is this Hastings folk garden right beside Insight on the 100 block of East Hastings in the downtown east side of what we call Vancouver, the unceded stolen land of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh that I'm living in and presenting from today, and doing this work of deepening reciprocity and about thinking about land relations on. And I have some pressed elderflower and foxglove here to start sharing some of what grows in our garden, some of the plants that offer us medicine and hope in this work of equity in practice, which to me really means this thing of being in community, this thing of like sharing our creativity, this practice of bringing our whole selves into spaces. And I'm really going to work to do that today in this presentation, including sharing some gifts at the end from my own personal practice of creativity. So on the left here is the Hastings Folk Garden, and you can hopefully see some beekeepers in there behind the feverfew and the mint, the elderberry, the fireweed, all of the plants that we grow there for the bees, for the people, for medicine, for food, and for this work of bringing this connection to the land and to what was here before Vancouver, to Kemkamele, the place where the maples grow, as the Squamish call it, and thinking about how through this garden we can take meaningful actions and be a commitment to land back, understanding what that means to each of us, understanding how we can fight for that, and really be in deep listening around the Indigenous leadership in our communities that is asking for that. So how do we do that in this complicated space, in this tiny lot on the 100 block of East Hastings, in concurrent crises that are overlapping and ongoing of housing policy, of drug policy, as well as the current pandemic, as well as, you know, all of the grief that we're working to hold together, which Yvonne, you were sharing so beautifully about meaningful actions that we can be taking and how to be in that practice. Also knowing that joy is possible in that space, and that when I'm in this garden, I feel joy. And I feel that joy when I look at these faces of some of our community leaders in this garden. Jim on the left here holding a frame of honeybees, and DJ on the right holding a bouquet of roses that we grew together. And really the work of leadership and of learning, I think, is to be in listening, to be listening to community, to be listening to the people with the experiences that are most impacted by these systems of oppression, of exclusion, of poverty, of violence, the colonial systems that we're working to dismantle through this work as we move through change towards justice. And when I look at Jim's smile there, and when I work alongside Jim and the bees, I know that that joy is real, and I know that my hope is grounded when I'm in relationship, when I'm feet on the land, and when I'm really feeling the bees buzzing, and when I'm stepping back to make room for people to come in and listen to Jim and have him share his skills and how the bees communicate. And when DJ brings friends from community, when she brings friends from the Downtown Eastside Women's Center or from the Carnegie, when she brings Indigenous women and their families into this space, I know that we're making this space safer together. And then I know that we can be, through this community leadership, governing a space and fighting for this space and resisting the development of this space that's right in the heart of so much development in our city, and that we can be fighting together in that grounded relationship of trust and respect with the plants and the pollinators, that we can be resisting the development of this space and coming together to advocate for it, for what it offers in the community, the medicine of the land. I wanted to share a bit about who I am in this, and this is part of the practice that has been really central to community capacity building for me, which is thinking about when I'm at the center, spotlighted in this presentation, and when I move out of the center into more of a witness role, where I'm in deep listening, where I'm in support role. Also knowing that sometimes I need to ask for help and I need to move in the center, and sometimes I need to share my creativity. Um, and what helps me understand that and helps me understand how to move between those two places in a good way is to think about and be learning about where I've come from to be here, which is from Northern Ireland. This is my great grandmother, Sarah, my namesake, Sarah, on the far left in all of her finery. Um, and I only saw this picture and like met this person this past year. So this is a new friend, a new ancestor to me, and I've been able to do this through helping to transcribe the memoirs of my father's father, who is here on the left on this cart, this wheel cart with the donkey and the dog, also in Northern Ireland. Um, and thinking about how that connects to me and how these people, my grandfather and my great grandmother, who I didn't know, but how I feel I now know them through this work of listening to their stories and seeing their photos, so that when I'm here on the far right under this willow tree in practice and community, listening to this tree and listening to myself, I know that I'm pulling forward lessons, and I'm really trying to acknowledge where I come from, that allows me to be in this community and to be doing this work and to be working alongside people like Jim and DJ. And what I want to do is be a good guest. And I think as good guests, what we can do is share our unique gifts and recognize the unique gifts of others and really hold people up in sharing their gifts. This was a Polaroid. A visitor came to the garden and was taking Polaroid portraits of our gardeners, and gifted us this one of our garden. Um, and as a guest, I also want to be in a practice of deep listening. And this is Jim and Kate on the right here, listening to the cedar that we planted a few years ago at the folk garden, beside the sweat lodge, across from the therapeutic apiary, up from the medicinal pollinator and plant beds. And really listening to that cedar and thinking and feeling into the connection between this lot in the heart of the city out to frontline communities and deeper ancient forests on our coasts, and in our interior. And so when we're thinking about this garden, when we're listening deeply to our community, we're noticing who's there, we're noticing the diversity of plants and the oasis that this garden provides in the heart of the city. We've been visited by a red hawk this year. Almost every time we're in the garden, this red hawk, I'll move my cursor over them, they're right here, comes and visits our garden and feels like a friend and a witness to our work. They recently shed their ruffly feathers and now have their beautiful red tail feathers in. And we also notice all the other bees other than the honeybees. So this tiny bee here in the mint, a tiny little fairy bee. There's such a diversity in our community, and we're so much stronger for it. And that's what we want to hold up in this garden space. And that's the way we want to govern this garden space as well. So this last set of photos, the one on the left is from circa 1999, and is of the lot. So I've lined up these two photos. So this is in the last 20 plus years, the work that has been done, and the community that exists, that is the community of the garden. This was Lincoln Clark's photo on the left, which was shared with me with permission. And the photo on the right is our photo from Hives for Humanity, of our members gathering to think about how to bring art into our work and how to share the story of this garden, so that all of you who might not be in the community can really feel what it's like to sit there under the tree with the hawk and to feel the value of this space and community. And what we're working to do is to bring this garden into a community land trust, which would mean that this garden would be brought off market into community-led governance by the folks who I've been sharing story with through this presentation, on a model we've been developing called our Community Engagement Committee, where we are deeply listening to community and empowering their leadership all the way through our organization to our governance level. And that through that, we can hold this garden as a space of love and care in perpetuity alongside community, with this long-term goal of thinking about how that leans and leads and might move us towards land back. And so, in a practice of gifting and a practice of sharing myself and where I'm coming from, I want to share some poetry that I wrote that I also made into song and Jim recorded yesterday in the Hastings Folk Garden. So, Amanda's going to drop those links. There's the lyrics to the poem or the song, and there's also a recording that Jim made where you can hear some of the background. The hawk is in the background, the people are there. And at one time, people kind of chime in and sing along. So that is given to you as a gift, and thanks for being here and for your listening and presence. My ask is that you learn more about the Hastings Folk Garden, that you connect with us through some of these online and in-person spaces I'm offering on this slide, that we support in each other and invest in each other, and that we know that we're mycorrhizal, that we all impact each other, we can all support each other, we're all connected, much like the trees, much like the bees, like this community that I've experienced in community capacity building. And I also want to acknowledge so many teachers, and I ran out of space on the slide, but I'm going to leave this here and just thank Laura and Vanessa and Yvonne. I'm also going to bring Adrienne Marie Brown and Belle Hooks into this space, women who I've been reading, people who I've been reading and carrying with me. And also Laurie and Leona, Sharon, Kate, Jim, Ali, Flo, Finn, and all the community at Hives for Humanity. So thank you all for your listening and your time.